Let us pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you that you have gathered us together this day to be in the presence of your Son. For he has promised that the two or three are gathered in his name, there he is in the midst of them. So in welcoming the Lord Jesus, we praise and honor and glorify you. And Lord, as we come before our shepherd, we ask you to cleanse our hearts, heal our wounds, direct us where we need to be directed, lead us in all truth, Holy Spirit. And whatever is of the flesh, or the devil, or sin, or of temptation, we pray to fall to the ground and die in no effect, so that we're completely available to all you have for us now. And let the word of my mouth and meditation of our hearts be truly acceptable in your sight, our strength and our Redeemer. Amen. Grace and peace from God our Father and from the Lord Jesus Christ. In 2 Samuel 22, verse 7, we read that David said the following to God. He said, "In my distress, I called upon the Lord." In my distress, I called upon the Lord. And when we consider what David said here in 2 Samuel 22, and when we consider the life of David, his relationship with God, his calling on the Lord, it really leads to three things that we need to talk about, three themes, and we'll deal with them for the next 3 Sundays. The first theme is this: the purpose of trials. The second theme is the key to victory over our spiritual enemies. And the third theme has to do with giving thanks and praise to God. Today, let's consider the first theme that comes out of what David writes about the Holy Spirit in this 2 Samuel 22, when he called upon the name of the Lord. And that theme is the purpose of trials or tribulations in our lives. What is the purpose? Well, in order to get at that, we need to look at verse 1 to begin with of chapter 22. In verse 1, we read that David spoke these words to God after the Lord had delivered him from the hand of his enemies and from the hand of Saul. And what we learn there is that David's life was a life filled with warfare, filled with trouble, filled with threats of death and destruction to himself and the people of Israel. David knew distress. He knew the power of death. He knew the threats of his enemies. And his life was filled with trouble, not just because of his own sins, but because his calling in life was to lead the people of Israel to a place where they finally removed from the land what was left of the Canaanites and those enemies that were keeping them from entering into the full inheritance that God had promised Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All his life, David was dealing with warfare. His life was a fight. And there are two things that he realized during this time, or during this reality in his life. And what were they? Well, the first thing he realized was that he could not do the job God called him to do by his own strength. He realized that he could not overcome his enemies and overcome the trouble and tribulation that was before him by his own intelligence, his own strength, his own natural abilities. Because in the natural, everything was stacked against him. His enemies were more numerous. They were better equipped. They made alliances. And on top of that, sometimes his own family got to the act to try to undermine him. So he knew that in the natural, he could not win the fight. He could not overcome. On top of that, as he got older, he realized that his own physical strength was starting to fail him. And he could not, by his own body, physical strength, do the work that he needed to do by his own ability. So the thing that he realized is that if he's going to have victory, if he's going to overcome, if he's going to come out on top in face of death and trouble, then it's not going to be by his own strength. Because he recognizes in himself there is no strength, there is only weakness and inability. That's important for all of us to see. There are probably situations, troubles, distresses in your life, and when you look at it in the natural, it looks like it's insurmountable. I can't overcome that. I don't have the strength for that. I can't do that on my own. David realized this in his own life. But thank God that's not all he realized. Because the second thing he saw was that if he can't do it, God can. If he doesn't have the strength, God has it. If God called him, which he did, then God will fulfill his purpose in him, which he did. So he called upon the Lord, who is greatly to be praised, and he overcame his enemies. In other words, he found what Paul would write later in Philippians chapter 4, verse 13. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Not, I can do all things, period. But I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. I overcome him who's in the world because he who's in me is greater than he who's in the world. David realized that in order for the job to get done, he had to recognize that he had a fight on his hands, that he wasn't sufficient for it. And so he had to surrender to the strength and the wisdom and the grace of God. He had to reject his own strength and take on the strength of God. And what does that say then with regards to the purpose of trouble, trials, and tribulations in our lives? Well, what it says is something very simple. Just like with David, Christian life can be a fight. It can seem like a constant fight. There's constant trouble, constant trial, constant tribulation. How do we overcome? By calling on the Lord. Not looking to our own strength, looking to his. Not looking to whatever is in us, but looking to what's in him. And that means that the purpose of tribulation is to draw us to a place where we realize that in ourselves are insufficient. And therefore, we need to get right and close to God. Tribulation is a time when God will call us close to him. That's what tribulation is for. If you have tribulation or trial in your life, you know what God is doing? He's calling you away from believing in yourself or believing in something else, something in the world that might help you. And he's calling you to know your need of God and to come close to him and receive what you need. Because what you need cannot be found in another human being. It can only be found in him. What you need cannot be found in the things of this life. It can only be found in him. And when we have trials and tribulations in our life, God is making it clear to each one of us that we cannot depend on anyone else but him, his purposes, his promises, his covenant, his power, his redemption. So do you have distress in your life? If you don't now, you will. You have trouble in your life. If you don't now, you will. That is just a fact of living on planet Earth. And when those fights come, to whom put your faith in me. In yourself, you won't make it. In the world, it won't happen. But in God, He will answer. So remember, well, there's a trial in your life, do what David did. He called upon the name of the Lord. And what that means is that he rejected his own strength and chose to live in God's strength, in God's purpose, in God's plan, in God's grace. Because the trial was intended to do that. To put a death to yourself and believing in your own abilities and drawing near to God and living in His abilities. All trials ultimately come down to that. Are you willing to surrender your ability and your life to His? Are you willing to come close, know your need of God, and live in what He offers? Not in, and I don't mean to insult anybody, but this is true in my life, and not live in the inability and really the pathetic strength that's in each one of us, which cannot save and cannot get the job done. So what's the purpose of trial and tribulation? Draw near to God, know your need of Him, and surrender your strength to His. Let His life work through you. That is the only way that your calling will be complete, and that is the only way that the need will be met. Let's pray. So, Father, we thank you for this time together. We thank you for your word. We thank you that you are true. And we thank you, Lord, that you are faithful to your word. Lord, we draw near to you now. We know that there are many things that we cannot handle. We try to, and we fail every time. We get disappointed. Lord, we're looking to people to do things for us that only you can do. So we just surrender that right now. We ask you to forgive us. And we know our need of God. Lord, we know that we need you. And so we just come surrendering to your will and your purposes and ask you to take over those areas in our life that we seek to be in charge of, so that your strength is living in us and we are able to accomplish the purpose for which you called us. And we ask this in Jesus' name, our Lord and our Savior. Amen.